How's it going, peeps? Welcome back to Viva La Coin. I am Joe. I will be your host for today's episode, and welcome to Spring Day, or at least that's what I believe it is, as we come to the end of this massive dump cycle that began in the middle of May. Some would say even towards the end of April as Bitcoin started to lose strength and major players began to manipulate the market and drive retail into the fucking ground. Now, as we broke down, I was talking about on several of my previous videos a target that I believed would be that zone that we would bounce from. And I mentioned it plenty of times, and I kept saying that 28K, 8K, that absolute bottom peak that we wicked down to at the original dump would be where I would be looking for the market to recover. And there were a couple things that I was sharing within the Telegram group that I have, which I'll link below if you want to join. It's just a bunch of banter back and forth and trying to, support each other and keep each other educated and updated on our own opinions. But a couple things I've shared there that I was looking at as far as that white cloth accumulation pattern that was occurring as people were bringing everything back in. People said that timeline was going to be far longer, which I can completely understand because the accumulation phase of it, as they were driving the price up, took months and months and months. The only thing I think in the back of my head that kept telling me, that might not be the case, is the fact that we have so many updates now being cleared or going into place for the most major cryptocurrencies in the space. And I've covered those in length, such as Bitcoin's Taproot update, which we spoke about on the last video, EIP 1559 for Ethereum, Cardano's mainnet going live with Alonzo, and Polkadot Parachains going live with Kusama as well. So with all this going on in the background, in the major wallets that have been around for a long time, not selling, and it predominantly being wallets over the last 6 months, is this the final phase of the dump, and are we about to reverse entirely? So I'm going to look at just a couple pieces of information that I took into consideration. I spent almost all of the sidelined stable coins that I had around that low point when we were below 30K. If I'm wrong, then I accept that risk that I'm taking here based on the information as it's presented. By no means is this financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. Nor am I an oracle, nor am I a fucking wizard. This is solely educational to make sure that you understand what's going on behind the scenes, and you can go and do your additional self-educating to make the best decisions for you. Any comments, concerns, questions that you have, please leave them down in the comments. I'm always happy to interact with you guys in any way, shape, or form. And also, I'm going to be pulling on my Twitter here in a bit. Make sure to go and follow me there just to follow my daily thoughts if that is something that you're interested in following within the market. But let's go ahead and jump into it and see exactly where we're currently at in the market, because a lot of people messaged me throughout this morning and they were pretty panicked because we did wick all the way down to $28,800, at least on the Binance charts here. And it was the lowest that we've gone in this dump so far for any sustained period of time other than like a minute flash down wick. It happened a little bit slower than previously in the middle of May. And a couple things that I was looking at. So one, I was talking about this occurring because you have to get that final point of capitulation where everyone in the market loses complete hope and drops their crypto altogether. There is no reversal. Every story out right now is talking about the bear market. Every analyst is talking about the bear market. Scott Menard from Guggenheim, being the fucking piece of shit legend that he is saying, we expect more downside to $20,000, even though we know Guggenheim in the background is purchasing Bitcoin and setting it up for their wealthy investors and people they manage assets for. So all in all, I think that between the news cycle and all the fear and garbage that came out about China banning Bitcoin mining, which I'm going to go into later in this video, it led to the perfect storm of that final dump where people just gave up and they let go and everyone else began to accumulate again. And we already bounced back up to the low 33,000s just over the course of the past couple hours. Now, first and foremost, when we look at this chart in general, where we dropped all the way down to 28K, so we have had multiple dips at this point on the daily where we have clipped right around the same spot. So one right here, and one right there. So we're holding this same support line around like that $30,000 range with a couple small wicks below into the high 20s, but for the most part, no closed candles below it. And although in and of itself that you could call it like a triple bottom, which I saw a couple analysts talking about and, oh, this is where we're going to reverse. I say we zoom out just a little bit. And when was the last time that we saw support in this area? So when we had that dump down after we peaked all the way up to around high $41,000 back in January, we flash crashed or really rocketed down to 28K around mid-January. And then we finally eased our way back down there over the course of the month to around the 21st. If I line this dotted line up to see where that average was, and we pull it all the way over across to our current stop points before we go any lower, I'm starting to see that this point right here, right across the board, is exactly where we're bouncing off of. And a lot of people are accumulating. And I get that everyone's going to say, oh, well, it's the environmental news, it's the stock market's going to crash and everything else. These institutions, now that El Salvador made Bitcoin a legal tender and other South American countries and other countries around the world are going to follow, and you have many people in retail and now wealthy investors getting in, if it dropped down to like $15,000, I couldn't imagine that everyone that ever considered getting into Bitcoin isn't going to buy as much as they can in that moment. So if it goes down there, I would be shocked unless it is very, very short term. Like I'm talking heavy, like V-shaped recovery bounce from there. Because I know I don't even have really any money left to spend, and I'd be trying to find a way to spend it if that was the case. But ultimately, I think that I feel pretty confident about where we're bouncing here. And the fact that I was calling for 28K just reaffirms my thoughts on where everything might be heading as we move into July. Now, I pulled up a tweet, and this was a message from the Telegram group, but I actually sent it on June 7th. And I was talking to a friend of mine that was in that group, and we were talking about the reaccumulation phases of the Wyckoff distribution pattern. And phase C essentially is where we were going to dip back down well below even where we dipped to start the crash. And that phase C is known as the spring, which is where everything dumps, everyone is short, everyone capitulates, and then it reverses. So what I said was, so phase C, I think it started when we went sub 35K. In my eyes, a wick ripping us to 28K would force all hands into capitulation, all the bears to leverage up since there's no support below 30K, and we would likely crash directly to 20K. And like a fucking magic, just a blast back up would finish liquidating anyone that's overly leveraged and short in the market, destroying the final part of retail in the market that hasn't yet been destroyed. And that seems to me like what is happening. And there were separate tweets that people put up tracking a specific pattern for that Wyckoff reaccumulation pattern. And if we look at just about 2 days ago, early on the 21st, maybe about a day and a half ago, someone was tracking this pretty accurately. I'm not sure who to credit with this, but we were following this pattern. I believe it was on the 8-hour, pretty damn close. And when it came down to it, it was, what was next? Well, we have that massive spike downward. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, so if this is a true two-time reaccumulation pattern that we are on, then we should see a dump at some point, either today or at some point early this week. And lo and behold, a day later, here we are with that massive rip downward. And that same chart someone else shared is they continue to fill in these bars. You can see we just skated right down into that low point, which is the Springer shakeout. And then, although it hasn't been filled in beyond that, guess what? We popped right back up and added about $5,000 to the price of Bitcoin, where we would be right around $33,000. And then go down, test support again, around $31,000, give or take. And then we start to work our way up as we move into these major updates for Ethereum, for Cardano, and all the other altcoins. And then Bitcoin gains strength, being a store of value, being used by nations and not just individuals. Now, a couple different news stories that also came out to help drive the price down, because Bitcoin in and of itself is supposed to be an amazing hedge against inflation, an amazing hedge against the weakness of the US dollar or printing, a hedge against the stock market if that crashes or anything else to hold that value. So you need all this additional bullshit news that they've tried to put out, whether it's about banning crypto, which no nation yet to this point has been able to ban it. So they keep pulling that back. China banned it in 2013, 2017, multiple times. They've already banned it once this year. And here we are. They're not banning it. They're just trying to regulate it and throw a wrench in it because they want their digital yuan to become the currency that everyone uses. And that also isn't backed by the US dollar. So China decided to announce right at this low point, because they want to drive the price of Bitcoin just into submission, China to shut down over 90% of its Bitcoin mining capacity after local bans. Now, this is a massive blow to the hash rate of Bitcoin in the short term, because in the grand scheme of things, Bitcoin has the largest mining pools in the world are in China. And China being an authoritarian style government with President Xi at the top, they do not want to lack any control over their population, whether that be financially, socially, economically, it doesn't matter. So they are working to drive the mines out of China, which by the extension lowers the hash rate because you have less miners validating the network. The less crypto pools and the less miners on the network to validate it, the weaker the security of the network becomes, the slower the network moves, and so on. Now, this isn't a critical issue if it is replaced and that mining is moved elsewhere. And time again, both myself and other people have said, just China can shut the fuck up and just ban it. We would be better off if they just ban Bitcoin and shut the fuck up than if they do this half in, half out. We want to play both sides of the fence and try and slowly kill it over time while destroying retail. And then we're going to replace it with our digital yuan because we can say, oh, look how stable this is as opposed to Bitcoin, even though it's partially our fault for continuing to blast it over and over again, even though we have no capacity to ban it. So just to give a little breakdown on this, the ban also means more than 90% of China's Bitcoin mining capacity is estimated to be shut down, at least for the short term, as regulators and other key mining hubs in China's north and southwest regions have taken similar harsh steps. So some industry players had hoped that regulators in Sichuan, I hope I fucking said that right, where hydropower is abundant because, right, people are supposed to care about the environment. That's why we're doing this, except it isn't, could take a softer approach. But the latest ban underscores Chinese regulators' determination to curb speculative crypto trading to control financial risks, despite certain benefits to local economies, observers said. So yeah, they don't give a fuck about the fact that it benefits the people. They give a shit about the fact that they can't control it. And then to quote, the exit window is closing and we're scrambling to find ourselves overseas mines to place our mine devices. And that was said by an industry insider in one of these districts where all that mining is done. So they are trying to ship these out all over the world. And to that point, this actually is going to be the best thing that could have happened to Bitcoin. Now, someone on Facebook, so Facebook's executive believes China's Bitcoin mining crackdown is a good development. So David Marcus, head of F2 Facebook Financial, has shared his view on the Chinese government cracking down on Bitcoin mining. F2 includes Facebook Pay, Novi, and all the payment and financial service efforts by the social media giant. Marcus is also a co-creator and board member of the crypto project Diem, formerly Libra, which is Facebook's attempt to make their own cryptocurrency, one that I wouldn't necessarily be excited to be a part of, but that's not the point. He tweeted Monday, "How is more Bitcoin mining power moving to the United States and the West a bad thing? In my opinion, China cracking down on mining is a great development for BTC or Bitcoin." I could not agree more with this statement. So many people agree with Marcus, sharing their opinions on Twitter. Several of them agree that the move may seem bearish in the short term, may be bad for the market in the short term, mostly because people don't understand what the fuck they're invested in, or they're falling into the trap of the fake news or manipulation, but it is good for Bitcoin in the long run. The CEO of cryptocurrency exchange Luno, Marcus Swinepool, commented, "Familiar pattern for anything in Bitcoin. First, potential issues come up and are identified, whether that be scaling, Chinese miner concentration, whatever. Two, solutions are created, whether that be the Lightning Network or banning mining in China. Three, you have risk mitigation to make sure that everything unfolds in a beneficial way for Bitcoin and the network. And then finally, eventually the penny drops, which is what they said a rocket emoji, which means we increase in price again." And to quote, I totally love how every move supposed to bring down Bitcoin actually works in its favor. Perhaps what doesn't kill you makes you stronger has never been more true. And that's the way that Bitcoin is designed to work. This isn't a network to be controlled. It isn't a network to be bastardized by these centralized powers that have completely ran their populations ragged, taking all the wealth and all the resources and doing whatever they want with it with no repercussion, because they also own all the regulatory boards and they also own the judicial systems and the politicians. At a certain point, it becomes unsustainable for any nation to operate that way if you continue to undercut your population. And if you live in a free nation, such as we do here in the United States, you should have the ability to choose, okay, I'm going to go and use this permissionless network because I feel like it is a better, bet with my wealth in, a stable source of value to show for the work that I've done. And, we don't want that either. The U.S. government wouldn't want us to be any more sustained because, again, poor people, uneducated people, non-self-sustaining people are good for business across the board. So another quote, so following the Chinese government shutdown of the Bitcoin mining farms, miners are reportedly moving their operations out of China. Who would have fucking thought? It's like a game of whack-a-mole. If you smack down a bunch of miners that are all centralized in this one area, what are they going to do? They're just going to go somewhere else because the opportunity is still there to generate and create the hash power and secure the network for the most important asset on the planet. Chinese miners, or miners that were domiciled in China, are looking to Central Asia, Eastern Europe, the U.S., and Northern Europe. Pretty much every Western mining host I know has had their phones ringing off the hook. And you know who else that includes? Carlitos Rahela, who is the deputy down in Paraguay, who, following Bukele, the president of El Salvador's announcement that Bitcoin was going to be legal tender and then the passing of the law subsequently, also announced that he will be rolling out Bitcoin-based legislation come July. And his response to them shutting down all the mines in this video over in China is, hello, waiting for you in Paraguay. And there have been, massive talks about whether it's U.S. states that are moving into mining, such as Texas or Florida, or I know Maryland just was in the news about it. Other countries in South America using their dams, and I guess in El Salvador, there are volcanoes. Everyone wants to make it renewable. Everyone wants to help their people. The only people that have anything to lose are the ones that have fucked this entire system up. And they would rather have you fucking lose everything right now with this manipulation than to give you any shot at a fair, and clear runway to get into it, which is why I have this channel and why we do this educational stuff, because at the end of the day, you see that dropping in that spring, which, hey, I hope it's a spring. Can I say with 100% certainty we're not going into the bear market? Absolutely not. Am I willing to take the risk on the information that I believe I understand and know, not only in crypto, but what I think is going to happen in the main macroeconomical view of the traditional market that has been overextended by money printing and at a certain point just manipulation and fraud? Yeah, I'm willing to take that risk, but I'm not going to tell you it's going to unfold 100% guaranteed one way or the other. I'll share my predictions here. I'll talk about what I thought about it dropping to 28K. I'll share my previous messages, but I'm not going to say it's 100% doing this, because many other influencers and channels and Twitter pages, they will say, nope, here's where we're heading. Oh, just wait. You'll see. Only a few understand. No one fucking knows. And one way or the other, I said on Twitter as well, by the end of this year, every single person on Twitter is either going to look like a genius or an asshole. On crypto Twitter. There is no in between. It's either going to be people that were right or people that were horrifically wrong. And I think that I'm pretty content with where I'm putting my eggs in my basket based on my understanding. And even throughout this entire down period, I've tried to strategically position it in a way that is most beneficial for me. I've tried to stay as calm as absolutely possible and look at it from a logical standpoint, not just in the charts, but also from a fundamental level and also from a grand potential level. So hopefully this information is beneficial to you, and today hasn't been too stressful. I know that I slept through a couple of my alarms this morning and I had people texting me and it was a little chaotic, but all in all, we're going to get through it together, and I hope that this helped. If it did, please share it with anyone else that you can in your life that may need to see this information. I hope it's beneficial to them as well. Leave a like on the video, and if you haven't yet, subscribe. It really helps me on my end, and to be honest, like, I'm not doing this for the money. I'm doing this to get the message out there, so it really, really means a lot. Aside from that, I am honored, as always, that you join me here to watch these episodes of Viva La Coin, and I will catch you guys next time.